Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Happiness Hour. Just like that, boom.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that. There we go.
Welcome, Dr. Dan Diamond. Oh my gosh, that's a great way to open the Happiness Hour. You're making my face hurt already. So we are officially opening the Happiness Hour for September 2nd, 2021 with Dr. Dan Diamond. I don't even know where to start. He's a speaker, he's an author, he's a coach, he's an international disaster physician and retired street mime, which we have to hear more about.
Yeah, true story. There it is. Just like that. And that is me.
Oh my gosh, that is okay.
It was a great gig. I was making $25 an hour on the street, putting my hat out in downtown Seattle. It was a great deal.
You worked your way through medical school that way?
I did.
Yeah. My dad drove a cab.
I think I had more fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Although we both have stories, I'm sure.
He absolutely did. Dr. Diamond is a great friend of mine for quite some time now. And he is one of these people that can turn disaster into opportunity, at least in perspective. He is from the trenches. He comes to us from the trenches of all kinds of international disasters, including Hurricane Katrina. And he asked this burning question, which I saw on your website when I was trying to figure out how to introduce you, Dan. You say, how is it that some people become unstoppable? And you come to this question after having so much experience leading medical teams in tragedies all over the world. You were involved in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina and the big typhoon. What was that in the Philippines?
Yeah, Typhoon Yolanda. We should talk about the difference between Katrina and Yolanda.
Okay, and we're going to learn.
There's some gold there. Oof.
Okay.
My God.
So let's start with our theme. So our theme for tonight is better questions. And I know in my many conversations with you, that's what your whole ethos is. Something comes out of your mouth constantly.
Yeah, it does. It's an ADHD thing. It's not my fault.
Your computer screen and your stories. We take stuff away from your stories that are all about asking at least ourselves better questions. So welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness Network, our Happiness Hour. Dan, where do we start? I've got an entire page of notes here.
We could start with how do you do mime if you want. I can teach you how to
start there, and then we'll weave into the harder topics.
No, let's don't start with mime.
Okay,
Let's start with Hurricane Katrina, since New Orleans just got blasted again. Okay. It's like fresh on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
I did. I came home from that asking myself this question that was not the question that most everybody else was asking. Most people were asking, why are there so many victims? This is ridiculous. Why are there so many victims? We knew this storm was coming. Why are there so many victims? Yeah, we knew there were going to be a lot of victims. We had 50,000 body bags on pallets. We knew it was going to be bad. We were prepared, and it was much less than we thought it was going to be.
Okay.
So, I think the official count was in the range of 3,500 or something like that. It was still a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But I asked myself a different question, and because I asked a different question, I ended up in a different place. And the question that I asked is, what is it that makes some of these people unstoppable? Not why are there so many victims? Because I met people that lost family members, they lost their homes, they lost all their belongings. The only clothes they had were the ones they had on. They lost their cars, they lost everything. And they still didn't become victims. I don't know that, you don't know until you lose everything. What would I do? Would I just sit on the curb and cry? This was 2005, so I didn't have my iPhone because it hadn't been invented yet. I had my Palm Trio. What if I lost all my contacts? I was like, really? Oh. I don't know. These people lost everything and they still stayed fully engaged. They believed they could make a difference. They showed up as givers to help other people, and it wasn't about them. And they didn't run around going, I hope somebody gives me credit. No, they were just doing the work, and it was really something to see. It was incredible. I learned a lot from them.
So, one of the things that you've shared with me before is this idea. I would love to start with this. I don't know if it's where you want to start, but okay.
Start wherever you want to. It's
So,
your time.
so we're in a disaster, and I think we can weave back to this. If you explain to us this whole concept about divergent, emergent, and convergent thinking, because I think that relates to the attitude that you were talking about that people had.
Yeah. Should I tell you my most embarrassing story of all
You
time?
tell us that most embarrassing story. I love that story. I can hear it over and over.
Yeah, this isn't fair because we got to hang out together a couple of days ago, so you heard all my stories. But yeah, we were in Haiti, and when we got into Haiti, I think at about day 5.5, and it was by far the most brutal thing I've ever seen in my life. And I've been doing disasters since I was 25 years old in medical school, when I worked for 3 months in a refugee camp with Hmong refugees in Thailand. But this was brutal. I mean, earthquakes are horrible. Storms are bad because people can't get to their usual health care, and the people on dialysis get really sick, and the people with heart attacks are in big trouble, and people still need their gallbladders out and appendix and all that stuff. But it's not like an earthquake where there's and you get all these people with crush injuries and all these children with crush injuries. And my job is always networking with the other teams and working with the United Nations. And, we're as soon as we get in, we want to find out who's there, what they have, what they need. And, because we share stuff, because it's not about us. We don't care. And so I'd seen all these buildings that had collapsed. And then when we got to where we were going to stay, we couldn't stay at the hospital where we were working because it wasn't safe at night because of the crime. So they made us stay in a safe house. And I'm like, kind of thinking on the way down here, I'd rather have a safe tent than a safe house. And we were in the second story of a concrete building. Like, no, I don't want to stay in there. And they said, no, Diamond, you have to stay in there because the crime out here it's not good. It's not safe. You need to be in the building. Like, yeah, but have you seen the other buildings around here? It's like, who made this one? Did they use rebar? I mean, it's like, so we're the guests from out of town. We stay where they tell us to stay. We're in the second story building, but I'm thinking, I've seen movies and I know how the firefighters do it. And everybody wants to be like a firefighter when they grow up. You do. So I took my boots off and my pants off and I stacked them right next to my bed. Like firefighters, so if you have to jump out of your bed, you land in your shoes, pull your pants up and run, and you're ready to go and be a hero. And it's like, I had this all planned out. I'm in the bottom of a bunk. There's nobody above me, but there's mosquito netting coming around and tucked underneath my mattress. So I'm kind of like stuck in this bed. And it's about 6:30 in the morning. And I start dreaming this bizarre dream that my mom is trying to wake me up and she's shaking my bed like, honey, it's time to get up, time to get up. And I went, ah, it's an earthquake. And my buddy Bob is in the other bunk and he goes, earthquake. And so I get out of my mosquito netting, I jump out of the bed, and during the night, somebody stole my pants and my boots. And I'm standing there in my tidy whities. Try not to picture that. I'm not a tidy whitey guy anymore because now I'm a black boxer briefs dude because of this. Like, I don't want to ever be in this situation again the rest of my life. I had this big debate with myself. Would you rather be embarrassed or dead? It was not a long debate. It was just a good debate. It was about the third of a second long. And Bob and I ran down the stairs out into the courtyard. And I just got off the phone a little while ago with one of my colleagues that was there. And he said, do you remember the time that you ran outside in your tidy whities? Yes, I remember it. It was horrible. I'm standing around, my whole team is there. All the people from the community are there and everybody else is dressed. And I'm standing there in just my tidy whities. No shirt, nothing. And this kid who's 10 years old passes out. And I go out to take care of her because I'm trying to be of service. My team's brutal. They're all yelling, Diamond, she passed out because she saw you in your tidy whities. Like, oh, it's painful. When it all calmed down and we went around, made sure the building was still safe and didn't look like it was going to fall on us, we went back inside. And the bizarre thing was, my boots and my pants were right where I put them. wow. It was all about tunnel vision. And people talk about looking through a straw. This was not a straw. This was a stirring stick that you use for coffee. I had just this little teeny view of the world. I was so afraid that I was convinced I was going to die. Like, I've never been that afraid in my life. And so I'm looking around through my little stir stick thing, and I can't see they're right in front of me. I can't see them. And I thought, how often do I have tunnel vision? And how often do I have tunnel hearing? Because that's a thing too. And do I sometimes have tunnel thinking? So when I'm working with my teams, whether it's in a disaster or whether it's, here in the US, when I'm working with people, if I get in a situation, there's two things that will propel me into this tunnel vision, hearing, thinking thing. Number one is extreme fear. The other one is anger. So when the world goes in the direction I don't really want it to go, for example, not that it's a significant thing for any of us, but COVID-19, go, oh my gosh, man, and COVID-19 would be bad enough if we didn't have ridiculous political unrest in the midst of this thing and two camps of people that are fighting each other over masks and vaccinations and all that stuff. And I'm like, really? And when I start getting frustrated and angry, I get down into tunnel vision, start getting tunnel thinking. So I like the book Thinker Toys. Let me draw this out for you. He does a really good job of explaining the concept of divergent, emergent, and convergent thinking. And it's like a golf pencil that's been sharpened on both ends. It's the way I remember it. So in this situation, I'm having divergent thinking. And it's really helpful because I can look around, I can see lots of options. I get this huge panoramic three-dimensional view of the world. And when I go into a disaster, I really want to be in divergent thinking mode so I can see the stuff around me better, because I can take something from over there or something from over here, connect them, and get a breakthrough. Then there's this emergent piece. One of the first things I do when I get in a disaster is meet the other teams, figure out what they have, what they need, and kind of take an inventory, because I'm looking for I wonder if I can take something from one team, something from another team, put them together, introduce these people, and then they can go do their thing. I just want to get out of the way and be a conduit to help introduce people. So divergent, emergent, and then convergent. Look at this. This is like, I know how to spell convergent. You can tell because I can do it at an angle and make it neat. And you can even read convergent right there, right? When there's a place for convergent thinking, but it's not at the beginning. You got to start here and go that way, not starting at the convergent end and think you're going to have some kind of a big breakthrough. So when we go into disasters, we try to play a lighter game and not get so focused on the problems that we can't see the solutions. So we try to back up a little bit, have a wider view. That's tough to do. It's really tough to do. And my dear buddy, Danny Friedland, wrote a book called Leading Well from Within. He talks about this idea of our frames of engagement. And he talks about Maslow's hierarchy. You want me to just keep riffing on this, or do you want to call a timeout and ask me a
keep
question?
riffing, because I love these two concepts, and I would love to have a little refresher on from your perspective for sure.
So he simplified Maslow's hierarchy, which I really appreciate because I can't remember the big version. At the bottom is the safety frame. And that's and the cool thing that Danny did is he said, wait till you see this art. This is going to be mind blowing for you. Because in dental school, did you have to take like neuroanatomy?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, you know stuff about the head that I don't know for sure.
Oh yeah. We spent years in only the head and neck.
All right. Did you floss today?
Oh yes.
Oh yes, so did I.
I did dentistry on myself today.
Oh, that's cool. How about that for a brain?
That
it works, doesn't it? Yeah. So down here you got the brain stem. This is kind of like the paleo mammalian brain or the lizard brain. This is what happens when you're in an earthquake and your brain just goes all about safety.
Right.
These all map out to the body, to the brain parts here. It's a simplistic view of the brain. The brain's much more complex than this, but in the safety frame, you can't see very well. Your brain's very fast. Kahneman wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. Fabulous book. Our brain's super fast at keeping us safe. So you're walking down a path and you see a snake and you go, whoa, snake! And you jump back. Then a little later, the rest of your brain comes online and you look and you go, well, that was a stick. Mm-hmm. But it could have saved my life. It's a helpful thing to have a safety frame that and it's always on. This next one is love and belonging. And this maps out here to the limbic system in our brain. And then the top one up here is a sense of significance. And that maps out to this prefrontal cortex at the front part of our brain. So when we're stressed and our resources are skinny and the demands are high, we drop down into this safety frame. When we feel like we have more resources and the demands are lower, we can get creative and go up into the significance frame. So, that's when I'm going in a disaster, if I get overwhelmed by the demands and don't have enough resources, I drop down into the safety frame that I can't see so well. And it gets really, really, really tough.
Yeah. And this is the world we are operating from when we watch the evening news, when we go on social media. We're our brains are scanning the world for signs of danger and disorder.
Yeah, always scanning.
And when we are on autopilot, this is one of the great flaws of our online lives, is that the internet came on board and no one ever thought to give us a owner's manual, or it's like learning to drive a car and they never
some people thought about it. Some people thought, have you watched Social Dilemma?
Yes.
That's worth watching. It's incredibly important, I think, for people to watch that, because it's you get into this backstage view of how social media is set up. It's set up to keep you online so they can sell you more stuff.
Yeah,
they don't care how they keep you online. They just want to keep you online, and they keep you online with two emotions: anger and fear. Oh, geez, anger and fear is right down here, right? Safety frame, brainstem stuff. This will keep you online. How do you get out of that?
Well, so
get out of that by loving and belonging. It's that next frame up. That comes before significance. So one of the cool things that I've found to do is to interview people, even people that I know. And I did an event for a bunch of high school kids a few months back, and we were talking about how could you design a culture at your school where every single kid felt connected and nobody did school alone. This is a bunch of high school kids. They came up with this idea called social stroll. And they said, we'll just have the teacher give us a question. Like, tell me a story about a time when you overcame a difficult challenge in your life and you didn't think you were going to be able to, but you did, and you grew as a result. And we'll walk for 10 minutes out. One person will interview the other person. When we get to the end, then that person says what they appreciate about the person they just interviewed. And then we walk back and we switch roles and we get back and that person says what they appreciate. What if we did that with our staff? At lunch, we're doing social strolls today. Everybody go out 10 minutes each way. We'll see you back here in 20 minutes, or 5 minutes in each direction. We'll see you back here in 10. And just ask yourselves a question like, tell me about a time when you faced a big challenge, or tell me about a time when you were on a team that was awesome. Why was it awesome? How did you show up? All that stuff. And then here's what I appreciate about you.
These are the kind of questions, if we're on a roll with better questions, right there. Those are two great ones. One I like to use myself. I don't know. This would be the perfect time, Dan. do the 3-2-1 questions.
3-2-1 questions are worth their weight in gold. Everybody just pull out your PayPal account and send Linda $8. In my family, if you want to borrow my car, it's $8. You want to borrow my lawnmower, it's $8. Everything's $8. This is worth $8. This is worth at least $8. The 3-2-1-0 questions are golden.
Okay.
3-word question. Tell me more. 2-word question. What else? 1-word question. And the no-word question. Had to get some mime in there. So this is helpful because when you get in a situation where you're dropping down into your safety frame, you're afraid, you realize you're standing outside in your tighty whities. You're not thinking so straight. Somebody says, well, we got this big issue that comes up. We don't know what to do about this thing. You just go 3-2-1. Say, well, tell me more. Or if your kid comes home and they wrecked your car, and they got some flimsy story that doesn't make any sense. Like, I swerved to miss a dog and I hit the curb, but the whole front of your car is bashed in. You're going, that doesn't add up. Yeah, instead of going, I don't believe you, just say, oh, wow. Are you okay? And then tell me more. And then they tell you a little bit more and you say, yeah, what else? And if you're doing this with your family members, you're doing it with your colleagues. So if you have a colleague that comes to you and says, man, I'm really having a tough time with this stuff. COVID is just draining the energy out of me. I'm having a really hard time. You say, oh, wow. Tell me more. And listen. And then when they run out, then you say, yeah, what else? And then the gold starts coming out of, well, really, I just don't know that I have what it takes anymore. Oh, wow. Huh. And it's so hard when we talk about how do we show up and be fully present for somebody else. It's really difficult to do. Oh. For me, anyway. I mean, I'm an extrovert. I'll just keep talking. Well, it's hard to sometimes stop and just ask questions.
And then we go back to your little brain diagram, and that's prefrontal cortex. I mean, to get out of the anger mode. And you get into what I always like to say is, exchange your contempt for curiosity.
Absolutely.
Because, contempt is this far away from outrage. If you're just walking around being with people that you have contempt for, it's no secret.
They make us go through training now at Medical Teams International. We go through HEAT training, hostile environment awareness training. And it's really good. It's taught by a company from the Netherlands, and we do it in a camp out in the middle of nowhere in Oregon, so nobody can hear the gunshots when they're shooting at us. And I have been kidnapped. I've been mugged. I've been hooded, zip tied, spent 2 hours in a barn with a hood on. I mean, it was crazy. But at the beginning, they said, we're going to train your amygdala. We're going to train that lizard brain, and you will never forget this stuff. So I know what to do. I've been trained so deeply in fear that if I get in a situation, if there's an active shooter that busts through this door right now, I know what I'm going to do because I've practiced it at that level. So, if you take the 3-2-1 questions, your idea of curiosity is awesome. So maybe you can only remember a 1-word question. You just say, and? Yeah, just and. Yeah, but I love Viktor Frankl's stuff. Viktor Frankl, he's an Austrian psychiatrist, captured by the Nazis, spent 3 years at something like that in the concentration camps, lost family members and everything. And he says between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our ability to choose how we're going to respond. In that space is our growth and our freedom. Going, well, that's interesting. I had no idea there was a space. I thought, oh, it's like stimulus response. And now I'm going stimulus. How do I want to respond? That takes practice. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm 64. When this stuff happens, can I pause long enough to give myself the option to choose? And can I be insatiably curious and kind and open?
That is the riddle of humankind, you know? And I think we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have progressed from the Stone Age to today through the gladiator period, through the crusade, through it all, unless 51% of us could keep our act together and be kinder than we need to be most of the time.
Yeah, I think we're losing our kindness factor right now, though.
It's I'm the cheerleader. I'm the rooter. I'm looking for champions. Ah, so tell me about that. You know, oh wait, we can't move on just to random questions without hearing you talk about. I love your concept of target fixation. Share that with us.
Yeah. Which story do you want? The one where I almost killed myself? Because um, target fixation, they teach people that drive emergency vehicles like police and ambulance drivers, and they teach it in motorcycle safety class, that you go in the direction that you look. And I've proven this to myself multiple times, because if I'm mountain bike riding and I go between two trees and it's really tight, if I look at the tree and I say, I'm not going to hit it, I'm not going to hit it, I'm not going to hit it, I'm going to hit it. My shoulders, if they had lips, they would say, that's the truth, because you just smacked us into the tree and the tree won, it didn't move. But one time I was up at Devil's Gulch. Now, anytime you're riding in a place that's called Devil's Gulch, you got to ask yourself, really, why would you want to ride in a place called Devil's Gulch? But we did, and I'm riding with my buddies, and we like riding downhill. We're not uphill people. There are people that are uphill people. I like riding downhill. And I'm the lead rider for this segment, and we're just flying down, and there's a part of the trail that's about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet wide, and it goes straight up on one side, and it's about a 30-degree angle on the right side, and it's a little scary because I don't do heights very well, and I'm flying along, and just for a second, I asked myself, I wonder if this target fixation thing is true. And I just went like this. You want to know the rest of the story? I launched myself off that cliff. And there was a shrubbery with a hat tipped to Monty Python and the Holy Grail. There was a shrubbery sticking out, and my front tire snagged into that. And so I'm on this angle, just kind of trying to figure out, I can't get back up. And my buddies go zinging by. Now, remember, we're downhill people. We don't like going uphill.
Right.
About 5-10 minutes later, they come back uphill.
Yeah.
And they're not really happy, but they're going, Diamond, why are you? I said, but I'm down here. They said, what happened? I said, target fixation. Go where you look. I know it's true. I've proven it. So how does that work in relationships? How does that work in families? How does that work in business? I love the example of one of the hospitals I worked with. They had a problem with patients falling out of bed. Well, how about that? The federal government doesn't like it if patients are falling out of bed because they get hurt. And so the federal government will start dinging them financially. They were in the bottom 25th percentile. So they were in trouble. So they did what most organizations would do. They formed a fall committee. Hold on, a fall committee. Wrong answer. Because the fall committee, what do you do at a fall committee meeting? Do you fall down? Do you have to pay people to be on the fall committee? That sounds horrible. Who wants to be on a fall committee? It's like, do you guys do like those trust fall things? Wait, what happens at a fall committee? They come up with stupid ideas like bed alarms. Those don't work. Back in the day, we don't do it anymore, but we used to use 5-point leather restraints. We would just tie people in bed. You can't fall out of bed if you're tied into it. And what they came up with was mandatory nurse rounds every hour. Hey, wake up. Linda, do you have to pee or poop? Don't get out of bed without me. I mean, every hour. After a couple of days, you're going, well, this is weird. Do you guys have a fetish? And the nurses are cranky because they don't like doing dumb charting, but they have to chart every time they ask somebody. So they're like, after a while, they're like, hey, Linda, if you get out of bed and hurt yourself, they're never going to find your body. So what happens to the fall rate? If you're lucky, it stays the same. Maybe it even goes up because the patients are going, man, my nurse is really overworked. She's having a heck of a time. I'm 100% sure I can make it from here to the bathroom. It all starts because they asked the wrong question. And David Cooperrider, the guy that started appreciative inquiry, was a wizard on this stuff. He said the questions that we ask are fateful, and we shift the whole system the moment we ask the question. So we need to be very careful what questions we ask. And do we ask questions that are like, I'm going to go back and draw this. Do we ask a question like, we're at A and we want to get to B? Patients are falling out of bed. We want patients to not fall out of bed. Is that the opposite of patients falling out of bed? Most medical people think it is. I would say the opposite of falling out of bed is great mobility. So then you say, oh, you want to have a mobility committee? How about this? Do you want to have a great mobility committee? Wouldn't that be fun? Who wants to be on it? Everybody. The nurses, the docs, the unit clerk, the physical therapy, occupational therapy. Do you have to pay them? No, they're excited. They want to be on that. Yeah, I'm on a great mobility committee. We have shirts, you know. When you ask that's called a generative question. When I ask the right question, I get better answers. If you don't like the answers that you're getting, change the question. Because change it to a generative question. And you can tell when you've asked a generative question just by watching eyebrows. You say you want to be on the fall committee? Not really. You want to be on the great mobility committee? Oh yeah, what's that? And the eyebrows go, oh, that's so cool. Sounds like fun. What do you guys do at the mobility committee? Do you dance? Yes. Matter of fact, we do. We dance. We have lots of fun. It's really good. And we get patients dancing. We get, how quickly can we get patients out of bed and get them moving so they're ready to go home?
This is a key problem in society. We're never standing and starting from what we have as resources. We're always just trying to focus on everything that's broken and need fixing. So we never even acknowledge where we're starting and what we got to start with.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned appreciative inquiry. I spoke at a appreciative inquiry conference a long time ago, and I just was supposed to be there on day one, and I stayed the whole 3 days. I loved the people. I loved everything about it.
Was David Cooperrider there?
No, but Lindsay Godwin, his PhD right-hand woman. Yeah, she runs the Cooperrider Center in Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont. That's how I met her. I've been friends with her ever since. But ever since, Dan, I keep 7 appreciative inquiry questions right over here on the wall in big letters with different colors ever since. And one of them that kind of goes with where we're talking about is, and I think in our times when we're trying to recover from COVID, when we're trying to decide, our priorities have all changed. They're calling this the Great Reset or the Great Resignation. I think it's the Great Questioning. I think we're questioning our priorities and all this stuff. So one of the questions I really love, and I'd love you to comment on it, is instead of saying, how can we fix this thing, or, complaining about, what do we all want more of?
Yeah.
I love that from appreciative inquiry. Yeah. What do we all want more of? Talk about trying to find a place to start that we can all agree about.
Yeah.
Right?
I tweak that a little bit and ask the question, what outcomes matter most? Like, where do you want to end up? I want great mobility. I work with teams all over the world now, especially because we got we do the studio thing. So it's work with teams all over the place. And sometimes I'll get asked to do programs on burnout. Oh, yeah. Can you come in and help us with our burnout problem? Because we got a serious problem. Well, I could say you don't have a burnout problem. You have a lack of enthusiasm problem or something, and flip it. But really, I need to meet people where they are. Right. So I think sometimes a great question when we're coming alongside people, especially when a lot of us have dropped more than we would like into that lizard brain, and we're in the safety frame. I think we need to start with, hey, Linda, what's keeping you up at night? Because right away you go, oh man, you care about me. That's cool. And so you're moving from your safety frame up into loving and belonging. And then, we have these mirror neurons. When yours are firing, mine start firing, it goes back and forth. And so we both kind of go up into this loving and belonging frame. And you say, gosh, we're really struggling with feeling burned out. My staff is burned out. I'm having a tough time. I think your staff is probably wonderful, but I'm just making stuff up. How we're really struggling. I say, oh man, that's tough. What outcomes matter most right now to you? And what would you, if you're thinking about a year from now, where do you want to be? I think another really great question that I absolutely love that comes out of this appreciative inquiry or exchange approach is where I've had all my training. And that's without the E, it's just exchangeapproach.com.
I would recommend people head over there. I just got to take a little sideline there because I had such a great time. I attended like an hour and a half kind of a webinar one day with Exchange, and I was blown away. I think I took probably 4 pages of notes. It's a way to tap into this. It's a place where organizations and people trying to come together and get things done together I don't know, you can explain it better than me, but you learn all these nuances of communication and I don't know, it's just it takes your whole game to another level. The little nuances that they point out that are so critical in those programs.
Yeah. I think I've learned so much. Oh my gosh, I've learned so much about how to lead teams, and it's really changed the work that I'm doing. It's all fully integrated in my stuff now.
And that's Danny Friedman, who you mentioned the book of, right? That's Danny Friedman's work, right?
Yeah. No, well, I mean, Danny Friedland's the Awakening Conscious Leadership, but his work is now being delivered in partnership with Exchange.
Okay.
Because they fit nicely. And Danny and I are, we've been doing lots of events and stuff together. So he's got terminal brain cancer now. So, and has had a rough week.
Yeah.
But he's asked me to kind of take the flag and carry on his work. So we're integrating that in all the stuff that we're doing now too, or a good chunk of it.
Yeah.
I like the exchange approach or appreciative inquiry approach. I think is fascinating when you look at this idea of what matters most is we talk about a 5I cycle. And in the 5I cycle, and this is a great way to remember the questions.
Okay.
But I'll walk you through the 5I cycle and then take it even simpler for you. Okay. So in the 5Is, we talk about in the initiate phase. I got to change my colors just because I'm getting bored writing in black. That doesn't make sense. So in the initiate phase, this is where we ask the question, what matters most? What does outrageous success look like? Who needs to be involved in the conversation? And you can use these questions, this kind of stuff, when you're coaching. You can also use them when you're coaching yourself. And you ask the question, what matters most? So, and I'll write that up here just so we can keep track. What matters most? Now, then I love this next phase.
I love what does radical success look like too?
Oh yeah.
Not just ordinary success.
Oh, I'll go radical success.
Right, Bryce? We're going to go for radical success on these things we're working on.
Yeah, you got to have radical success. We'll zoom in on radical for you. There it is, just like that.
Yeah.
So in the identity phase, this is where we think about who are we? What is the best of, when have we been at our best? What are our strengths? What are our values? What are our guiding principles?
And by the way, as Dan's writing, I've done some work like this with my team in my dental practice of 12 to 17 people. And this is stuff you can really sit down and do, and people get super engaged in it.
Oh,
They've never been asked.
Big time.
Yeah, they've never been asked. It has been some of the best times I've had with my team to really care about what people answer to these questions.
Yeah, I mean, just tell me a story about a high point story about when you were on a team that was the most fun team you've ever been on. What was it like? I mean, the high point stories is how you unlock this identity piece of, tell me the story about when you were at your best. Tell me a story about when you faced a challenge you didn't think you were going to be able to get through. This is all about where have you been successful in the past? How'd you pull it off? Because then we go from the identity phase into the imagine phase. And there's a nuance to the imagine phase that I don't think most people realize when they're first going through the training on this stuff is it's different to sit here and to look at the future and say, oh yeah, imagine what it could look like in a year. But when I'm working with teams and we're facilitating, what I want them to do is I want them to actually time travel into the future and look around for a little bit first. Like, what does it look like when you come to work? What does it sound like? What do the conversations sound like? What do you tell people about where you work? When you walk in, what's it smell like when you work where you work? I mean, we can't have scents in the workplace anymore, can we? Or could we? I mean, it's like, I want you to be so fully present in the future. And as you're looking around, then look back and say, how did we pull this off?
Right.
And what were the key factors that made this possible? How could we, what do we have to put in place to get us to this future that's so amazing? And we've got some exercises that we use when we're walking teams through this, but you could spend some time journaling if you're doing it by yourself. Think about, if you're feeling burned out, so you're looking at the initiate phase and you're going, man, I'm just feeling burned out. You say, okay, so what really matters? Well, I'd like to feel great again. I'd like to get my energy level back. I'd like to be reconnected with my team and my people. And radical success would be, I love going to work again. Oh, cool. So we go into identity and say, tell me about a time when you felt like you loved going to work and what was it that made it so great? How did you show up? What were your strengths? What were your values? All that. What were your guiding principles? And then we go from that down to imagine this amazing future. How'd you pull it off? Then we come up with the key elements, and there's exercises that we do to bring this out. Or if you're doing it by yourself, journal it out. What does it look like? Then we go over to innovation. And in the innovate phase, we ask a really cool question. We call it an HMW. An HMW question stands for how might we, which is different than how could we. How might we do this? So if we've got this new future and it's incredible, and the three most important success factors, we put this thing in place, we put this thing in place, and this thing in place. We have no idea how to do that. Then we go into this innovate phase and we're like, how might we do the first thing? How might we do the second? How might we do the third? And when we're in the how might we phase, we are all about this. We're divergent thinking. We're kicking around the emergent thinking. And we start coming up with rapid prototypes of what it could look like. And then we move into convergent thinking, which is the implement phase. So the implement phase is just, classical, who's going to do what by when? The difference is when you're doing this with teams, if the team was involved in going through this whole process, you don't have to say, we had an executive retreat and we came back from our retreat. We got a plan for you now. And we got 3 committees we're going to form. Who would like to volunteer to be on this committee? And everybody's going, that's the stupidest idea. Why would you want to do that? You didn't ask. You should have asked us because we could have told you your idea is stupid. But if the team comes up with the idea, then people are more likely to be able to be willing to show up.
And, as a leader, that's what you have to discipline yourself to do, is keep asking questions instead of offering answers.
Yeah. And it all starts here.
Yeah.
And it starts here.
That's a discipline.
Now, do I show up where I think I know all the answers? Do I show up with my heart, connect with people at a heart level first, and then welcome their opinion? I love this thing. I think I showed you my piece of glass. This thing is so cool. It's a yellow cube of glass. And it's like, I remember my dad saying, it's true if you see it with your own eyes. Really? I mean, I thought that was true. I thought my dad was telling me the truth on that one. Well, it turns out it's not so true, because I'm looking at this. I'm 100% convinced that I know that this is a chunk of yellow glass. And then you come along and it's like, oh no, Diamond, it's actually blue. So, well, how could it be blue? Because I saw it with my own eyes, it was yellow. And you're going, yeah, but from my perspective, it's blue. And I'm thinking, you're nuts. I'm thinking you're out of your mind, because I know what yellow looks like, and it doesn't look at anything at all like blue. But then somebody else comes along and says, you guys are both wrong. It's actually magenta. And then you go, maybe we don't understand what this thing is. But if we come alongside each other with openness and kindness and curiosity, then between us all, we get a better idea of what this thing actually looks like, and go, oh, I need you to help me see more clearly. I need my staff to help me see more clearly. And I got to move away from this. If I see it with my own eyes, I know it's true, because I've been deceived before. And there's stuff I don't know.
So let's wrap up on that. I think the world would be so much better for being able to say, I don't know. Like, how many times in disasters is there a moment when that was like the most important word you could say, or the most important word you could hear from someone else, so that you can make better decisions in the split second?
It saved my team's life in Haiti.
Okay.
Because we always, there's a roster of us, and they pull from the roster on who they're going to put together on the first in team. And then we meet each other usually for the first time at the airport. And so I'm the team lead going in, and I bring my team together at the airport, and I say, hey, my name's Dan, and I suspect I'm going to make at least 3 mistakes on this deployment, 3 significant mistakes. And I would really appreciate it if you'd let me know when I do. I welcome your feedback at any point. And when I went through my heat training, they taught us that we should always, always, always establish this ground rule with our team, that at any time, anybody on the team can call for a huddle. Okay. Yeah. Like I've been on teams where I didn't feel like I could call for a huddle. I'm just the medical student or whatever. But, how can I want my team to know I'm going to make mistakes. I need their help. So we're in Haiti, and, like I mentioned, I saw these buildings that collapsed. I saw these buildings where the front of the building fell off, and we're in the operating room, and we've been operating since, the crack of dawn until dusk. And then we had to go to the safe house. And one of my staff comes in and they said, hey, Diamond, did you see the crack? I said, no. You mean the crack in the office? They said, oh, no, not that crack. The other crack. I said, well, show me. So they grabbed me. We go outside, and the surgery suite was cantilevered off the front of the building. So, it kind of went, you could walk underneath the surgery suite. It was about 15 feet off the ground. And there was a crack going right up the side of the building where that was attached. I'm like, oh my gosh. In the incident command structure that we use, it's the same as the fire departments. If I'm the incident commander and I haven't appointed a safety officer, I'm the safety officer, and the buck stops here. And I'm looking at it going, I should have seen that. Well, the key thing is I don't want to beat the stink out of myself at that point. That's not helpful. I just want to say, let's figure this one out. Thank you so much for telling me, because if my team member would have been afraid to come and tell me, or would have assumed that I already saw the crack because he or she assumed that I had my act together, they may not have said anything, and we could have lost our team. We ended up going to the United Nations, got a team of engineers from Spain that came over and helped us build some makeshift pillars to hold the front of our building on. We had to evacuate. We finished our case we were on, but we evacuated the operating suites, built the pillars, and did all this stuff. But it could have been different.
Could have been. Yeah. Well, what if we just all showed up in the world where we had an approachable demeanor? I like this word approachable these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
I'm looking for people who are approachable. I don't know about you, but they seem like the helpers right now.
Yeah. I love, love, love the work of Brian Stevenson. I don't know if you've seen his stuff. Search, it's BRY, Brian Stevenson. He's with the Equal Justice Initiative and is working on getting people that were convicted of life sentences when they were kids.
Oh.
He's doing a lot of work on that. He's trying to get people off death row, and he got Anthony Ray Hinton off death row. And so Brian Stevenson's got an amazing, he wrote a book called Just Mercy,
Yeah.
which is a great book. Hinton's book, The Sun Does Shine, is another, oh my gosh, I wept and yelled out, cried from my soul reading that book. But Stevenson talks about this idea of proximity. And I love that. Am I willing to come alongside people that are different than I am? Shoulder to shoulder. You know, when God built your face, he put your eyes right next to each other. If you want to have 3D vision, you need two eyes. If you want to have depth perception, you need two eyes. But he didn't put them on your fingers. He put them right next to each other. And it's really cool how it works. So what I want to do is come alongside people that are different and say, I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. Could you help me to see? And bring that curiosity that you talked about. Like, I came from a fairly tight little box world of I know right and wrong and I know everything. Yeah, now I come alongside people, I seek them out. I want to spend time with people that are different because I want to see the world differently. And I know that, it's different depending on your perspective. So how do we find people intentionally? I think diversity is important and inclusion is important, not just because those people need to be able to play and it's fair. It's the fair thing to do. And we need to make sure we all have the same starting line and all that kind of stuff. But I also really value that because I know I'm so blind on my own.
But we're back to where we started this conversation about tunnel vision, right?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And going from that safety frame up into loving and belonging.
We have made a conversation the last hour full circle. I can't thank you enough, Dan. I could listen to you tell stories all night. We're going to have you back. I know anybody who sees this now or in the future in the recording stage is going to really, really appreciate all these insights. And I don't know. We have such a good fortune to know you and to have you as part of the Ever Widening Circle's inner circle. I just can't thank you enough. And gratitude is one of the best things we can end a great night like tonight on.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
I love spending time with you.
Yeah, I managed to. We have got some comments over in the chat that Robin Metcalf, she's a great Ever Widening Circles colleague, and she I would consider Robin comes to a lot of these things, so she's definitely a early adopter of the conspiracy of goodness. And
I just posted 4 questions for you in the chat box that I think are great.
Perfect. Okay, there you go, Robin. Tomorrow, you know what to do with your team. Okay, so thank you so much, Dan Diamond. This is great. Everybody, thank you for your comments in the chat, and we will have this conversation live on and on and on the Conspiracy of Goodness Network. Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a great night.